The Adidas Samba, the workwear style, and the old money style are all good examples of trends that will never look out of place, even if they die out. However, not all trends hold up like these, and if you buy into them, you might just regret it. In this video, I'm going to be talking about popular current trends that I think you need to be a bit careful with, and I'll explain why as we get into them. If you're thoroughly enjoying this video at any point, please feel free to drop it a like, and now that's all out the way, let's get into the video. So the first trend you need to be careful with is the cropped trend. A lot of us out there are cropping everything we get our hands on these days, normally with the kitchen scissors, and I think we need to be a little bit more careful. The whole DIY raw hem look looks cool now, but once this trend dies out, you may just wish you went to the tailors, or never cropped that item at all in the first place. And also sometimes less is more. A lot of people are cropping their items to the extremes, and once the trends move on, that item may become unwearable for you. And of course, good proportions will never go out of style, but some of these crops will. And just remember, anything that you adjust will be harder to sell if you do decide to sell it further down the line. Most people don't want to buy tailored clothing because it's tailored to someone else. Most people want that clothing in its original form, so the more you cut off, the more money you're potentially losing. And the only clothing that I adjust these days is cheaper clothing that's easy to replace, or clothing I never plan on selling. So maybe put those scissors down and have a long hard think. Is it a good idea to cut that clothing? Next up, we've got paint splattered pants. Paint splattered pants seem to be having a bit of a moment right now, but before you rush out and splash your cash on a pair, just have a long hard think. Are they really what you want? Now, I've got a pair of paint splattered pants from RRL, and I've had them for a while now, and I wear them a lot. And do I sometimes wish they didn't have paint splatters on? Yes, definitely, but I still love them. But there are downsides to these trousers. First of all, you get asked multiple times a day what you've been painting, so if you don't want to explain over and over again that you haven't been painting anything, then these are probably not the trousers for you. Secondly, this style of pant can be harder to style and less versatile. If you want to dress these up, for example, it can be quite hard to do so because paint splatters don't look smart. And lastly, this style of pant is currently trending, so people are seeing them a bit differently. Normally when they're not trending, a lot of people, most people, look down on these. Pre-distressed clothing of any kinds is normally hated by a lot of people in fashion, so you need to ask yourself, how do you feel about these kinds of pants when they're not trending? Maybe you'd be better off wearing some old trousers and putting some Bob Ross videos on and following along, rather than spending a lot of money on this one, but it's entirely up to you. Next up, we've got bootcut pants. So I never thought we'd see this trend again, but here we are. I'm old enough to remember this trend back in the early 2000s, and this trend didn't last long. Me and my friends all really wanted a pair, and by the time we got round to getting a pair, the trends had already moved on. I tried to wear them regardless, but they didn't suit me or my style, so I ended up never wearing them. But the same thing is going to happen this time round in my opinion. I don't think this trend is here to stay. So unless you're planning for these to become a big part of your style going forward, I'd be a little bit careful of these. Now don't get me wrong, bootcut jeans can look great with certain styles, but if your style isn't one of them, they can look a little bit out of place with the rest of your wardrobe. And in my opinion, you can never go wrong with a straight cut pair of jeans or trousers. They work with everything, and anyone can pull them off. And they're timeless. Anyway, I'm going to be doing a trouser video on the channel very soon, so if you want some recommendations, then make sure you're subscribed. The next trend you need to be careful of is square-toed shoes or boots. It wasn't that long ago where people were saying that square-toed shoes were absolutely hideous, and although a lot of people still feel that way, they're definitely getting more popular. But in my opinion, this is another trend that will be short-lived, and it will look outdated in a couple of years' time. Trends that are heavily style-driven tend to have a shorter lifespan than trends made up of classic items, and square-toed shoes are not a classic item. They're also not very versatile, and they can be hard to style, so if you're on a budget, then I'd probably stick to something more classic instead. And although there are some square-toed boots that I love at the moment, I am a little bit more careful with this one, because I know that trends can cloud my judgment sometimes. So yeah, I'm not going to heavily invest into this one. Of course, if you love these and you think they're going to work perfectly with your style, then of course go for it. But if you're unsure about them, then tread carefully with this one. Next up, we've got the oversized trend. Now, I think there'll always be a place for oversized fits, but as a trend, I do think this one has peaked, especially the really oversized stuff anyway. There definitely seems to be a shift towards the more classic and fitted looks these days, and I think people are going to look at the oversized trend very differently in the not so distant future. As I mentioned, I'm an old man, so I've seen this one come and go before, and I don't think this time is going to be any different. So just be careful investing a lot of money into this one. I also don't think the overly big baggy jeans are the most versatile option to have in your wardrobe, because no matter what you pair with them, they tend to give off the same kind of look. They're not the best for smarter occasions either, so you are limited with what you can do with these. And you have to ask yourself, how likely are you to wear these once the trend has died out? Only you know the answer to that, but unless you're 100% sure that these are going to be for you for the long run, then maybe hold off buying those £600 acne jeans and buy yourself something more affordable instead, like from Weekday for example. Next up, we've got Mary Janes. Now I might be wrong with this one, but I don't think the Mary Jane trend is going to last that long in men's fashion. I think it's great that men are trying out different styles, so I'm all for people wearing these, but I don't think they've got a long-term place in a lot of people's wardrobes. And it's not just because they're normally worn by women either. I think items like skirts, for example, are making their way more and more into men's fashion, and I think they're here to stay, but I can't say the same thing about these. A lot of the pairs that I've seen online cost a fair bit of money as well, so if you're not 100% sure on these, then I'd maybe put your money elsewhere. But let me know how you feel about Mary Janes. Do you love them or do you hate them? And are you planning on buying yourself a pair? The next trend you need to be careful with is micro sunglasses. So why are micro sunglasses on this list, you might ask? Well, because they're pretty much useless. They don't offer much protection from the sun, and they don't suit a lot of face shapes, so they're really hard to style. I don't think there's much else to say about this one other than be careful spending a lot of money on micro sunglasses, because you might not get a lot of use out of them. I want to talk about any trend that's not practical or comfortable next. So let's take the whole hiking boots trend as an example here. So even if the trend of wearing hiking boots with your casual outfits dies out, at least you can still use the boots for hiking in. It's what they were designed for after all. Trends that serve a practical purpose outside of the trend are never a bad idea to get involved with because they'll always be useful. Unless you hate hiking, of course, but then you could always sell them at least. But the same thing can't be said about the Jacquemus mini bags, for example. Once those go off trend, if they haven't already, they're pretty much useless. You can't keep anything in them, no one's going to buy them off you if they're not trending, and they cost a small fortune. But I hope this video doesn't come across like I'm saying you should never wear any of these trends, because they can be fun to play around with. And some of the trends on this list may become part of your personal style going forward, so they're worth the money for you. It's all personal. All I want to do with these videos is get you thinking and maybe stop you impulse buying items that you're going to regret buying further down the line. But let me know what you think about my takes. Do you agree with them, or do you think I'm completely wrong and all the items on this list are timeless? But I hope you enjoyed this one. If you did, please do leave the video a like. Don't forget to hit subscribe, and thank you so much for watching. Toodle pip. I said I was old, but I'm not toodle pip old yet. But yeah, I'll see you later.